In June 2024, at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, over 10,000 Unitarian Universalists came together to conduct the business of the association of our congregations. Changes in our larger faith only happen when congregations vote to support them after years of study and conversation. It was during this business session that Unitarian Universalists voted to accept a new expression of our shared values. Instead of the principles being a foundation of our faith, a list of shared values with love at the center was affirmed. And you can see that image with these new values in mind on the front cover of your order of service. Justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, with love at the very center. And this is what we approved. We had delegates from our own UUSF community there that voted in favor of this, and the congregation came together to affirm those votes and request those delegates to affirm it. So as I mentioned during the welcome, UUs are now exploring what it means to place love at the center of our faith. I would add this exploration is just a little bit more intentional, because love has been central to our faith throughout our history. Love has motivated us to step into social justice issues. It has motivated us to build community with each other. It has motivated us to come to a common agreement about the worth and dignity of each person and that we are all interconnected. As Reverend Dr. Sophia Bentecourt, our UUA president, reminds us, centering love is not new, but rather the critical core of our inherited theological tradition. So far, the Wednesday group that's meeting to read these 29 essays in the book Love at the Center have only read 12. I would say the biggest takeaway is the abundance of ways love can be expressed or described. Each author brought their own lens to the conversation, and that turn has opened up the possibilities of how each of us can engage love in our faith. The other realization I've come to in centering love in our faith is it's a struggle to love. It's not always romantic or pretty, but it's something we fight for, and in circumstances we fight against, even when we know it's calling us to our best selves. As Reverend Dr. Bentecourt says in her introduction to the book, the love that lives at the center of this faith is very simply the love that abides, as Reverend Barbara Hamilton Holloway often tells us. It is a love that expects nothing less of us than rebuilding of this struggling world. Sometimes what we know of love and justice pushes us in ways we never expected, and sometimes the need to bear such love into the world is heartbreakingly large. We are people guided by and centered in our engagement with all that love requires us. I feel like I've been love bombing you. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, this service is a little bit more interactive. So I want you to turn to each other and think about your own definition of love. Now, we always have the option for you to just sit with yourself and contemplate. You can do that as well. But if you want to turn to each other, talk about what your definition of love is online, you can put it in the chat as well. So take a few minutes. Let's take one more minute. Okay, let's come back together. You'll get another opportunity, I promise. Now that you've expressed some of your own definitions of love, I want to share with you some of the definitions authors have expressed in their essays as they explored what it means to place love at the center of Unitarian Universalism. Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd offers up the following definition. Love is inherently relational enterprise. Love cares how we can generate life-giving hope in concert with those around us. Love does not happen alone. Reverend Juniper Meadows suggests that love can be what lifts us up and our own undoing. Love can undo us in grief of the death of a loved one or when faced with injustice. Love is the messy, transforming power of all that we are, all that we do, and all that we are becoming. Our group kind of had fun with this one. Eco-theologian Reverend Adam Robert-Smith invites us to think of love as one of our senses rather than a feeling. He uses the natural world to help us understand how this works. Reverend Robert Smith shares his experience of witnessing a mama bear and her cubs, stating at one point, the mama bear grabbed one of her cubs, pulled it in close for a hug, and then let it go to play with its siblings. He continues, I do not know what the bears understood to be happening among them, but I recognized in their actions something akin to how I act, how I live. In the family of bears playing, I saw the nurture of young as relation actively realized, and I felt it, perceived it as love. Perhaps this is what the natural world can tell us about love. Not that our beings feel love, not that other beings feel love as we do, but we can recognize love as something more than our own feelings. If love is the very best of relatedness, Reverend Robert Smith concludes, then love is at the center of life itself and networked through our entire existence. So think about that. Can you just observe what you might think is love rather than trying to feel it? That's a new way of thinking about it. So far, we have done love is not done alone, but in relationship. We have love as messy and transformative power, and we have love as the center of all existence. How are your definitions holding up? Are they expanding, staying the same, changing? According to Reverend Shigai Sakuri, who brings into the conversation their cultural experience of being a Japanese descendant, love encourages us to learn and expand our understandings by being in community with each other, by leaning into and celebrating the different cultural contexts we all bring. Our ideas can expand about love. So what do you bring from your culture that influences what you know and what you understand about love? When former UUA President Reverend Susan Frederick Gray considered what it means to place love at the center, she suggests, it is a form of love that both inspires and requires action. It's fierce in a way that compels us to demand justice in our world, but also fierce in how it calls us to courageous conversations, to radical practices of welcome, compassion, forgiveness, and belonging. It is a love that animates how we care for each other within community and the courage and commitment we bring to promote our values in the wider world. It is an expression of our faith made real in our world. It is an expression of our faith made real in our world. So we come to the second time. for you to contemplate and reflect. And I've got two different questions because some of us have been in this community and Unitarian Universalists for a while. And so your question is, what does it mean to you to center love at the center of Unitarian Universalism? So what does it mean to place love at the center of Unitarian Universalism? For those of you that are new to our community and still trying to figure out what Unitarian Universalism is, what does it mean to center love in your life? What does it mean to place love at the center of your life? You can talk to each other, you can contemplate on your own, and you can answer in the chat. So take a few minutes. So let's take another minute. All right, let us come back together. So how does centering love in our faith or in our life call you into action? Does it require anything of you? What's the spiritual practice you can cultivate to keep love at the center? When we make love a central core in our lives or our faith, it requires a bit more of us, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It requires us to embrace the struggle to love. It's not a given that we love. Sometimes we just tolerate, and that's not good enough, right? As I contemplate this in my own life, I am reminded of when I struggled to learn about meditation. In the beginning of my learning, I struggled with trying to achieve the perfectly clear mind. And I was reminded again and again and again by the person leading the group, the goal was not a perfectly clear mind. Instead, meditation is the practice, the continuing practice and practice and practice of clearing your mind. And the practice, not the perfection, which means that the practice helped me find a place of grounding I could call on when my day-to-day life got chaotic, or my anxiety started to rise, or things changed that I had no idea was going to change. This means when we think about developing a spiritual practice of love, we need to keep that practicing of meditation in mind. Our practice will not be perfect, but it will bring us back to the place we can access love and act from that center. That is the hope. That is the hope. This was evident in the remaining essays that we read, which were about personal experiences with the practice of placing love at the center. Reverend Nathan Dietering shares his practice of love as he leans into the acknowledgement of the sweetness of life as he sits with somebody in hospice. Reverend Sam Teetle reflects on his practice of love as he helps honor the existence of lives during their internments. Reverend Sierra Marie Griffo encourages us to practice love by leaning into interconnectedness in ways that are creative or generative. Reverend Natalie Finnemore reminds us that we need to practice loving and accepting ourselves in order to love others. And finally, the last three authors, Glenn Thomas Rideout, Liz James, and Reverend Manish Mishra Maseretti, ask us to consider how accepting we are in our expressions of love. Do we let people show up in the fullness of who they are and still aspire to love them? Not just tolerate them, but love them. All of this is only in the first 12 essays of the book, and we have 17 more to read. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can still do so, and you can find information in your order of service on how to join us. Right now, the class is only in person. However, I'll probably do an online version in September where you can join then. Either way, I encourage you to play and be creative in how you place love in the center of your faith and your life.